Hello, this is Paul Pisano with the Federal Highway Administration. I'm the team leader for the Road Weather and Work Zone Management Program, and will be providing an update on the Road Weather Management Program along with my colleague Gabe Guevara. Other members of the team are Romer Alfalor and Ray Murphy, and they provide support. So the agenda for this presentation is to provide first a background on the Road Weather Management Program, highlight some of the program activities, those we think are particularly of interest to this community, spend a little bit of time talking about everyday counts, weather-savvy roads, and then turn it over to Gabe to talk about integrated modeling for road condition prediction. So first, some background. The biggest picture of what we're all about at the Federal Highway Administration Road Weather Management Program is to find ways to alleviate the impacts of adverse weather on roads. So very broad objective. And what that means, though, is in particular, is how do we help road operators and road users make the most effective decisions? And what we've found is that if you provide anytime, anywhere road weather information, that helps the decision maker make a more effective decision, whether that's the traffic manager managing signal controllers or variable speed limit systems, the maintenance manager making a proactive anti-icing decision, the truck driver or traveler deciding when to travel, where to travel. All of those decisions require the right information at the right time in the right format. And that's what we're all about, is how do you use technology to get that information to the right people at the right time in the right format. So we have a program divided up into 6 elements as captured here, and I'm going to talk to each of these in a little bit of detail. So the first element is stakeholder coordination. We can't do any of this ourselves. It's all about those of you, particularly in the public agencies, who are managing the roads themselves, to take action. So we need to work closely with you to understand your challenges and opportunities, and that's been a fundamental part of the program since we started, which is working with our partners, and that's both on the transportation side of the house as well as the meteorological side of the house. So we work closely with NOAA's National Weather Service and the private sector weather providers as much as we work with the transportation community, and we work closely with academia as well. We also have a part of our program on program and performance management. So that's all about how well are we doing in our activities. We have an aggressive program. We want to make sure we're spending our money as effectively as possible. Romer Alfalor is in charge of conducting a biennial update on a set of measures, and my guess is that some of you have participated in those surveys to answer some questions that we send out, or that Romer sends out, to get an understanding of where you are and how far along you've come. And we are nearing the publication of our latest update on the road weather performance measures, so look for that report to come out soon. We are, under this area, we also are working closely on the road weather management capability maturity framework, and that's all about how to advance operations, again, across both traffic, transportation management, and maintenance management. And Romer is leading that effort, and some of you may have already hosted workshops on the capability maturity model and help to use that information as a way to determine where best to focus your resources. The biggest chunk of time and money in the program is under the road weather R&D, focusing on data, applications, and decision support. Then we have an area particularly focused on weather responsive traffic management, knowledge and tech transfer. So how do we take those research results and turn them into useful information to help those who deploy take advantage of those solutions? And then we also have a part of the program looking at operations, extreme weather, and climate resilience. To spend a little bit of time talking more about some of the R&D activities going on, this is a brief rundown of a lot of the different projects we've got or have either completed or are in process. On the observation side, how do you measure weather and road conditions How do you, and then you share that information. We focused certainly in the past on fixed RWIS station data and how to integrate that and quality check it, and that was what the Claris initiative was all about. And we're now working with NOAA to transition that to their MEDAS system, the Meteorological Assimilation Data Ingest System. And then we have the weather data environment as a place to also share data coming in off of mobile sources, and particularly state fleets. Integrated mobile observations is all about that whole concept of putting sensors on fleets as a way to get a better picture of what's going on out there so that that information can help make better decisions. We have Pike Alert, which is a vehicle data translator. It's software that takes those observations and makes them useful, turns them into segment-based characterizations of weather and road conditions. That product is available, it's completed, and it is posted up on the open source application development portal. We've done work on different applications, particularly those that take advantage of connected vehicle data, like motorist advisories and warnings, the enhanced maintenance decision support system, road weather performance management tool, integrated modeling for road condition prediction, which Gabe will be speaking about shortly. And then we work closely with the ITS Joint Program Office on related efforts like the Connected Vehicle Pilots, especially that one which is taking place in Wyoming DOT, and standards, particularly SAE J2945. We've got other research on effective messaging. Even if we know what's going on out there, how do you turn that into the most effective message for travelers so that they will take appropriate action? And then we're working closely with the national academies on a study on weather and social behavior. Take a little bit of time now to talk about the weather responsive traffic management work. And while this may be the winter maintenance peer exchange, and you may be mostly maintenance people, I think it's important to be thinking about weather not only from a maintenance perspective, but from a traffic management perspective, and look at how agencies can join forces between the traffic and maintenance offices and departments to keep the system open and moving as freely and safely as possible. So work that we have underway is we're working with Washington State and Delaware DOT to test out and evaluate guidelines that we've just developed on connected vehicle enabled weather responsive traffic management. And I've got some slides on that in a minute to talk about that a little bit more. We've just completed the 4th National Weather Responsive Traffic Management Stakeholder Meeting in Raleigh, North Carolina. Look for materials coming from that soon. And in the May-June issue of Public Roads, there's an article on riding out the storms, which highlights a lot of this and more. So the Connected Vehicle Enabled Weather Responsive Traffic Management Guidelines. This is a publication that came out earlier this year. Romer was the lead for this work. And this is looking at how to tap into connected vehicles to better manage the system under adverse weather conditions. So the guidelines provide guidance to agencies on using connected vehicle data, describes the required capabilities, identifies the guidelines identify appropriate pathways for implementation, and provide concepts and examples of applications. And the URL for that pub is listed here. When we talk about the different pathways, it's important to recognize that as of today, there are existing and emerging ways to get data off of connected vehicles. And we speak to these 3 different pathways in these guidelines. And the first pathway being the intelligent agency fleets. That's your vehicles that you have outfitted with sensors and some means of wireless communication that you can get that data off of your vehicles to get a better picture of what's going on out there. For example, your RWIS stations may have good information for the fixed stations for that particular site, but there's a lot of miles between stations. So if you've got your trucks running up and down the roads between these sites, that gives you a much better picture of what's going on out there. That's the type of data we're talking about under Pathway 1, is what you can get from your vehicles. Pathway 2 is going to be connected vehicles at large, and that's what's emerging on the private sector side. Not yet really readily available in terms of getting connected vehicle data off of the general public's vehicles, but certainly is something that we expect to see down the road. And then the third pathway are the third-party services and travelers, and that's the groups like Waze and INRIX and others who are also collecting data and can be a good source of certainly travel time and volumes. The challenge with pathway 3 is that they're not going to have road weather data like pavement temperature or some of the other things that you may need that you can get more easily through pathway 1. So we talk about all these different pathways in the guidelines and how to then utilize those and the different types of means of communication to get the data off of the vehicles to leverage for weather responsive traffic management. And the idea there is that you start with equipping your fleets, but over time that could certainly change as you rely on other sources. And it's not just a matter of getting the data; it's what do you do with the data? And here, within the guidelines, we talk about a number of different weather responsive traffic management strategies that can be utilized and better supported through this additional source of data. Things like adjusting speed limits, determining closures, providing targeted traveler information, determining vehicle restrictions, and enhancing incident response. So all of that is addressed within those guidelines, and I encourage you to check those out. On the knowledge and tech transfer side of things, certainly the most aggressive activity we have going on right now is in this area at all, and in particular, it's with regards to everyday counts, weather savvy roads. We also have training and other resources available. And then the last part of the program is looking at operations in extreme weather, and there we are looking at not necessarily the short-term impacts of weather, but more the long-term trends and what is it that we're seeing happening that we need to better prepare for from an operations and maintenance perspective. So we published a report last year on planning for system management and operations as part of climate change adaptation. We are completing a study right now that considers the climate resilience aspects of the transportation system management and operations capability maturity frameworks. So in other words, for those of you who are familiar again with the capability maturity models and those frameworks, they have been developed as with current conditions in mind. Now we're saying, what do we need to be thinking about as things change and as we see more frequent extreme weather events? How do we need to better manage our system and prepare for the longer range impacts? And then we also promote the use of INVEST, which is a tool that the Federal Highway Administration Office of Environment Planning and Realty developed to help with consider sustainability. Take a couple of minutes to talk about weather savvy roads, and I'm going to zip through these pretty quickly because I imagine most of you are familiar with it. And but I wanted to, for those of you who have not heard yet, familiarize you with what we're doing there. Weather savvy roads is a federal highway initiative to promote deployment of proven solutions, and the two that we're promoting under the Everyday Counts is the overall activity to promote deployment. Weather savvy roads is one of the solutions, and we're in charge of that. And the two parts of weather savvy roads are Pathfinder and integrating mobile observations. The goal of Pathfinder is to strengthen the working relationships across state DOTs and the weather and climate enterprise for the dissemination of road weather information to travelers that is clear, concise, impact-based, and consistent, so that drivers are well informed and able to make safe and efficient travel decisions. The point here is that you may already be working with the National Weather Service and get their products and services, which is great. We want to take that relationship to the next level where there's two-way communications between you, your private sector weather provider, and the National Weather Service, so that what information you're sending out to the public is consistent. It doesn't help travelers if they're getting one source of information from the National Weather Service that tells them one thing and something completely different from the state about road conditions because of the weather. We want them to be as consistent as possible, and that's what Pathfinder helps to get to that. So it's all about how do you communicate and coordinate across these different agencies to improve the safety of the roadways. Integrating mobile observations is all about, as I said before, putting sensors on vehicles to collect, transmit, and use weather, road condition, and related vehicle data for improved transportation system management. And so we're working aggressively with 23 states, I believe it is, that have signed up for that, to build upon the sorts of things we've demonstrated in Michigan, Minnesota, and Nevada DOT. This map shows which states are participating in weather savvy roads officially, although and even there's a lot of other work going on even with those states that are in gray. But the states in gold are deploying Pathfinder, the states in green are deploying IMO, and those that are both colors are doing both. And we're working closely with all of them, with all of you, to help deploy these two solutions, or one or the other solution, by December of 2018. We have a technical support contract to provide a lot of technical assistance to help you with the deployment. So we're developing a suite of educational materials and hosting events for agencies that are interested in this. And that's still in the emergent stage. We're still putting a lot of that material is still in draft form, so we don't have a lot available today, but certainly expect to within the coming months. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Gabe to talk about the Integrated Modeling for Road Condition Prediction Project, because we think this one's particularly important and would be of interest to this community. So with that, Gabe.
Yes, thank you, Paul. So what we want to do now is give the audience a little idea of what we're doing with this integrated model for road condition prediction. And the idea here was to put together a model that takes into account all the disparate array of information, whether it's coming individually from just data, or is it coming from outputs from models, and try to take all of the data and all of the outputs of those models and fuse them together and put them to good use for transportation officials to make decisions, for travelers to make informed decisions, and in essence, to try to increase mobility and safety and increase efficiencies in operations based on the output of this model. Next. Paul? Okay, so the objectives of the IMRCP. So it was, like I said before, develop an integrated predictive system that incorporates real-time and archived data and the results from an ensemble of forecast and probabilistic models, taking into account things such as atmospheric and road weather information and outputs of models, taking information on hydrology, traffic, work zones, and winter maintenance operations, incidents, special events, traffic demand models, outputs, and take all of this and fuse them in order to predict the current and future overall road travel conditions. And it was meant for travelers, transportation operators, and maintenance managers. Next. So in order to do this, we needed a location to deploy the model and test the model. And we went out with a solicitation, we did some inquiries, and we decided to go with Kansas because the Kansas City area where Kansas City Scout is located, it offered a variety of challenging weather conditions, different type of routes, different levels of service, and different functional classifications. And in essence, it also afforded us with interesting, challenging weather and hydrological situations. And last but not least, Kansas City Scout was a very willing and cooperating partner in this study. So that's how we ended up in the Kansas City Scout area. Next. So this is an overview of the area of Kansas City where we deployed the project and where we're getting data from. As you can see on the legend, we're getting data from traffic signals. There's over 200 of those. Traffic detectors, again, there's over 150 detectors on the roadway system, plus like another 50 or so on ramp meters. We're getting data from ASO stations. We're getting data from the dynamic message signs, again, data from the ramp meters. We're getting data from Stormwatch or Advanced Hydrological Prediction Systems. We're getting data from the bridges and in order to do this, the traffic demand model, they had to break everything down into links and nodes, and we have over 2,000 links and about between 800 and 900 nodes. Next. So this is a very high level view of what the system functions are all about. And I just want to pique your interest on this. I know that this is very high level. If you want to, at the peer exchange, visit with me and we can get into the nuts and bolts, and I can tell you what are the muscles and what is the brain behind all of these different modules of the system. But we can see here that we have a data collection module where all the data that I mentioned before, whether it is from weather, if it is from traffic, it's hydrological models, whether it's traffic incidents, work zones, it's all in there. All that data goes into a data store, and then from the data store, it goes into the forecasting models. And these forecasting models, again, they take into account weather and the outputs of weather models, like weather, traffic, hydrological, that takes into account incidents, work zones, all the information that it can get, and then the output of the model goes back into the data store, and then it gets shared via the graphical user interface with the users, and the users can look at the data live as they want, and I'll explain how they do that, or they can create subscriptions and reports to view them on an as needed basis or based on their particular interest. Next. Okay, so when a person enters into the model, this is the landing page. This is what they will see first. And we try to make the tool as intuitive as we could. We can see on the top left-hand side, there is controls to zoom in and out. And depending on your level of zoom control, you will see more or less definition and more data in the map. On the bottom line, we have the view road condition data. We have the view weather condition data. We have a time slider, which is a very interesting tool that allows you to go back in time a number of hours. You can see the present situation, and then you can see predictions into the future. And we also created the ability for the system to generate alerts. The system has a refresh of 1 minute or more or less, depending on how the operator or the user wants the system to refresh. We also have notifications that was requested by Kansas City Scout, so they don't have to be always looking at the system. They can be alerted when something out of the ordinary is happening. And like I said before, the user can create reports and subscriptions. And then we have a date and time function so that the user can go back in time and look at the observations or what the model outputs in the past. Next. So we're going to get here a little bit into each one of those functions. This happens to be the time slide, right, that I talked about. It's in the bottom of the landing page. So the time slider on the map interface can be used to view current observations, what the system is seeing right now. It can be used to look at predictions, what the system thinks is happening in the future, and it can also be used to see past observations. But I need to qualify the meaning of the word observations, because an observation, the way we normally think about it, would be looking at a temperature sensor and you get a reading of 22 degrees Fahrenheit. That's an observation. But in the case of the IMRCP, an observation is always the output of the model. So we need to think in those terms. When we're getting speeds, or we're getting a delay, or we're getting something like that, it's really not a direct observation from a sensor, but it's rather the output from the model. Okay. So also regarding the date and time function, this allows users to select a past reference date and time to get a snapshot view of the map at that time. And again, It is the outputs of the model, the computations in the past. So it wouldn't be necessarily an actual number or representation based on a real look into the past, but it's really the output of the model that it had at the time that you're looking into the past. Next. So in this particular view, we're looking at the road condition data. This happens when people click on the lower left hand of the toolbar, and in this particular case, the user selected to see traffic. So the traffic here is based on its, let's call it a qualitative type of an output, because it's a graphical representation based on colors, depending on how does the actual speed at the time compare with the posted speed on the road. So when you see green, it doesn't mean necessarily that it's people are traveling at 55 miles an hour or better. It means that they are traveling in a manner that is consistent to the posted speeds, and that could be 30 miles an hour. So in a section of road, you see green, the speed may be 30 miles an hour and yet be green, but that is the posted speed, and that's why the way it is. Also, when people click on the road condition layers, they can also see the road network model, they can see pavement state, they can see pavement temperature, pavement flood depth, pavement snow depth, and then again, they can see the traffic characteristics, you know, traffic speed, traffic density, traffic flow, and the actual routes. Next. In this case, the viewer chose to see the weather conditions, and that again, that's on the bottom tool at the bottom of the page. And when people want to see weather conditions, the different layers can be air temperature, surface visibility, wind gust speed, wind speed, precipitation rate and type, the National Weather Service alerts, and the radar. And for these and all the other different views, there is always going to be a legend that explains to the viewer what it is that they're seeing in the map. Next. Okay, here the user selected in the toolbar to see the alerts, and in this particular case, the user elected to see all the alerts that are in that particular area. So in this case, we can see that there are some there's work zones, which is affecting traffic, and that's why that's under the traffic alerts. If there had been an incident, that's also part in there, would be shown in terms of the speeds. But people will see road condition alerts, whether the pavement is slippery or whatever. Those different type of conditions will generate a road condition alert. They would see weather alerts in terms of precipitation and so forth, and they can click the all alerts, and then again they will see everything that is happening in there. In this view, we can see on the top left, we can see that there's work zones happening in there. There's also one on the far right. And then we see the two little different icons on kind of on the top right and on the bottom left, indicating that there is some slowdown, some kind of a breakdown in the system for whatever reason. Next slide. So like I mentioned before, the user has the capability to zoom in and out of the map. The more you zoom into the map, the more detail you get. And like it was mentioned before, we have links and we have nodes. The user can select a link or any particular feature. It could even be a polygon, a little geometrical figure that the user may want to draw. And as the person clicks onto that, they will get specific data associated with the particular variable or object that they chose to look at. This is a view of a link that somebody chose. So we can see in there the geographical coordinates of the link and the description of the link. It's I-435 between Quivira Road and Metcalfe Avenue. And we can see there that the system is giving us average speed of the vehicle on each link. We're getting the density of the vehicles in each link, and we're getting the snow inundation depth in there. So we're getting some hydrological information as well. So all the information that's available for that particular object can be reflected in here just by clicking on it. Next. Okay, and like I mentioned before, Kansas City Scout was interested in having notifications so that an operator doesn't have to have their eyes glued to the screen of the IMRCP, but rather when something out of the ordinary happens, they wanted to be notified of that. So the notification consists of a map interface checkbox that turns on and off notifications. The notification box pops up and shakes to grab the operator's attention when new notifications are available based on current or predicted alerts. So it's current and predicted alerts. Anything out of the ordinary, the operator would get notified. So once that happens, the operator would click on the notification in the pop-up box, and the system will navigate the operator to the map, to the location that is relevant to the notification or to the alert. So then they, in essence, the notifications are a subset of the alerts that we created. Next. And again, the user is always free to create reports via subscription so that they only get data or information according to their needs or their desires. If they only want to get information in a particular subset or sub area of the big region that has been modeled, they can do that. So they can do this by selecting the report, subscribe button on the map. Then they can draw a box or a polygon around the desired area on the map, and they can follow afterwards they can follow the report or subscription wizard to continue and finish creating the subscription. So the system generates reports and subscriptions, and they can be viewed through the reports tab. Next. So in this particular view, the user decided to click on the all alerts, and then all the alerts here that are showing in terms of the traffic prediction following an incident. So there is a very let's say thorough set of traffic demand models that are part of this model. One is a Bayesian model, and the other one is the TREPS model. And anytime that there is an incident or there is a work zone or anything that will affect the free flow of traffic, that the model takes that into account, and it generates the traffic condition prediction for the time, and it also creates the necessary alerts to inform the operators of what's happening. And not only that it does that, but it gives the operator an idea of when is this happening, how long is it going to take, how long is the traffic pattern going to be affected by the particular incident. So this is one of the features, the cool features of this system that allows the operator to have that view into the future based on what is happening at the present time. Next. And at the same time, or in addition to having traffic roadway condition alerts, we also have the outputs of the hydrological model. So in this case, we see that there is an area in the particular zone within Kansas City that was affected by flooding. So the system is showing segments with pavement flood depth greater than 12 inches. That's something that can be configured. So when there is flooding above and beyond a certain level, or flow characteristics above a certain level, the person would be notified. They also see multiple flood National Weather Service alert overlay, so that is also part of the system. The system is taking the inputs from the National Weather Service and combining it with all the other inputs and outputs of other models, and giving a prediction of what's happening in terms of flooding. And again, we can see that there is a legend on the left, so that the user can see what is happening here, what are the different alerts or the different aspects that want to be considered. So next. So what's happening now? The project has funding until the end of this year. We're hoping to get some interesting weather between now and the end of the year, December or so, and really put the model to the test, see how these algorithms of the model work. We hired a contractor, ICF, who will be performing an independent evaluation of the tool of the Kansas City test deployment. One of the primary questions that we want to answer is, what are the benefits? What are the benefits that the tool brings and offer the users that go above and beyond what is presently available? Because some people will say, Gabe, we have the National Weather Service models already. We have MDSS. We have all these different tools. And yes, that is true. But what we don't have is all of those outputs fused together, integrated, giving us a one-stop shop to go and get current observations and future observations. So we want to see how that really can be of any benefit to the state DOTs and potential users of the tool. So a final report, including the evaluation done by ICF, will be put together and made publicly available early next year. The tool was developed under an open source, open code premise. So the software and the documentation is available to anybody who wants it. The Road Weather Management Program under Paul Pisano requested funding to go into a next phase of development of the tool, but the outcome of that request is very uncertain. We don't really know if we're going to get any more money. So that begs the question, what do we do now? I think it would be great to take the tool and make it part of a pool fund study comprised of people that may have an interest on the tool and taking it to the next level. And in the Road Weather Management Program, we would love to help put something like that together. And that's all I have. And again, I'll be at the peer exchange, and I would love to get into the nitty-gritty of the tool, answer any questions that people might have. Thank you very much for your attention. Paul?
All right, thanks, Gabe. And just the last slide here is our contact information. So feel free to contact any of us if you have any questions about what we've just presented, and otherwise, certainly talk to Gabe during the peer exchange. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you.